it's really cold, and I mean up there, that's minus 40, minus 45. And they have to leave one of their cats running all night long so that they can push the other vehicles to start them in the morning. So they got this cat and they just leave it idling all night long. Farley mowed. He never left the cook tank. He drank rum with the cook for the whole time he was there. He never went outside to get. So anyway, he says, I'll send you a copy of this article. So we said, yeah, that'd be nice. You know? And so this is the way he came out in the article. He says, it was so cold that we had to leave the airplane idling all night long. And he says, if you take a glass of water and throw it up in the air like that, it'll come down as a chunk of ice.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not true. But if you take a glass of water and throw it up and you thick it like that to break it up,
Yeah.
it will, it'll fall as icicles. But he said he'd flow it up and it'd come down a solid chunk.
Farley mowed, yeah, that's right.
Farley mowed. None of the stories you could believe in a men's magazine, but they make good reading. And that's
Yeah.
what sells a magazine.
Yes, it is. Reader's Digest is where my uncle got all his stories from. He just in court, my uncle,
Oh, yeah.
his name was Irvin Coover, and he had all these stories.
Oh, yeah.
You could pretty much go to the Reader's Digest and see some type of version of what the story he gave. Yeah,
If you knew what it was going to be, yeah. Well, I know he wrote the book. Something about a wolf.
Yeah, not Zing.
Quite a famous book.
Yeah, it was very
Balto.
What's that?
Balto.
No. I know you're talking.
It's quite a famous book a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he wrote that.
Yeah.
I never read it, so I don't know how much it was true. What was it called? Something wolf, wasn't it? I don't know what it was. Doesn't
No,
matter.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you another good story. This is a
Called
good
Gray.
No.
No, I don't think so. This is a true to life, and it concerns a woman this time. Another woman. This guy comes up and he wants to go up and watch the reindeer roundup. Way up. And the Laplanders, you know, they round up the reindeer like the cattleman rounds up cattle. So they round up these reindeer. And what they do is they have a circular pen, and they herd the reindeer into this pen, and they get them running in a circle. And the guy takes the red flag and he moves out into the circle. Well, they won't run into the flag and they peel off and come out and shoot. And that's how they separate the reindeer. Well, he wanted to see all this. So I said, yeah, I'll take you out. So we flew up and we spent the day up there watching this, and his wife was there too. He was a really nice guy to get along with. His wife was a terrible woman. She was always yapping about something, and something wasn't right, and her husband said, yes, dear, and all her, she was running the show. So anyway, we get back after a long day, and he's really happy. He helps me tie up the piston floats. He helps me tie up the float plane. And he helps his wife over the airplane, and she's cleaning and everything. And he thanked me very much. And 2 months later, I got a letter from this guy and found out that he was the president of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad.
Oh wow.
And he had enclosed a $200 check for me. And those days, 200 was a 2 weeks' wage probably or something.
Yeah.
Well, it might have been, yeah, I don't know. They used to make $700 a month if I flew hard. I could make $700 a month.
Wow. And
But
he
then,
did-
but
he gave you
gas was
200.
30 cents a gallon too.
Right. And
That's
he
a
gave you
gallon,
$200.
But he was really a nice guy. You would
30
have never
cents a
known.
gallon. There we go.
Yeah, 30 cents a gallon. Yeah. Not a liter, but a gallon. But he was such a nice guy. You would have never thought that he was, you know, president of the railroad.
Right.
So when you're ready to go to bed on you.
You done?
Yeah.
My part.
I'm not going to tell him we're flying into Richardson's. Without a license.
Well,
Did I ever tell you that story?
no, I don't know.
Now you said it, I want to hear it.
Said it. Now I want to
Okay,
hear
well,
it.
I was a mechanic at that time, airplane mechanic, and I had to go up to Dawson City, Yukon. And this was in the wintertime. And Dawson City is going to be the coldest place on the earth, I think. Anyway, he's flying, and he's a pretty nice guy, but he's an older fellow. Like, I thought he was old, he's probably only about 50. But anyway, he was kind of useless. Oh, and he used to smoke cigarettes, one right after the other, chain smoke. And we used to land in these, our job was to ferry out gas, put it on an island, mark it on the map where we put these cans of gas, and then in the summertime the helicopters would come out and do geological surveys, but they didn't have enough gas to, they had to pick up gas way over the way.
Right.
So that's what our job was, to fly that gas, pick it up in Dawson City, fly it out to the island and leave it there and mark it. When we get out of the airplane, there's lots of snow, deep snow, maybe 80. And he'd get out of the airplane, stand on the ski, because if he stood on the ski initially, he went down quite a ways. And he would lean on this tailplane of the airplane, just start coughing, and he'd make that snow turn red.
Oh, from bleeding and
Yeah.
blood.
And he smoked one right after, and he never quit. And that's what he couldn't carry that gas, he couldn't do anything, but he was good enough. He was called the ace because he was shot down in Germany. But anyway, it's another story. But anyway, and it's a dual controls in that airplane, eh?
Yeah.
And so one of the times we're coming back, he says, "Do you want to fly this airplane back?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to try it." So I took it. I did a pretty good job of it, if I do say so myself. I think it amazed him. He didn't know anything about me. So he said this. So I said, "Yeah." And so then he'd take over for the landing, and he'd do the landing. And so we did this for 2 or 3 or 4 days, and it was going really good. And then he says to me, "Do you want to fly this from the left-hand side?" And I said, "Sure." So he sat in the right, I sat in the left, and I made a few trips like that. Everything went well. So it was my job to go warm that airplane up in the morning, because it was so cold we had to have what we call a blow pot or a torch to heat the engine up so it would even start.
Right.
And then I had to run it a while, but I covered it up with a blanket and left it, and then it lets the heat soak into the engine and warm it up. And then I went, but he always, I had to go out early and do that. Then I came back to the hotel, and we'd have breakfast together. So I go back, and he's still in bed. So I go up and knock on his door, and I says, "Bill," I says, "time to get up. We got to go flying." He says, "Too cold." And then I said, "Well, okay." So I went down and I had breakfast. I figured he's getting up, and I'm back out. I said, "Bill, you're not up." He says, "No." He says, "I'm not going flying." And I says, "Well, you got to get this job done." And he says, "Well, look," he says, "you can take the airplane if you want." He says, "I'm not getting out of bed." So I went without and stood.
And you did it?
Went out into the Richardson Mountains, and it was so far that we didn't have enough fuel in the tanks of the airplane to make it back to Dawson City without using some of the gas that we flew out for the helicopters.
Right.
That's how far it was, beyond the range of the beaver. So anyway, we'd done that lots, and I knew the route now and everything. So anyway, I flew it back again. And I did that day, and then I came back the next day, and I said, "Bill," I says, "do you want to fly in today?" He said, "No." He says, "You go ahead and do it." So I did it. And then when it was all done, I thought, flying this airplane's a lot better than twisting wrenches.
Yeah.
So I went to the flying club to get a license. I had no license at all.
Right. Yeah.
And so I went to the flying club to get a license. So I registered at the flying club to take my private license.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get this instructor, and he's in a fake Canuck, and he's explaining to me, they have a stick in a fake Canuck, and we have a he says, "You push this way, it turns left, push this way, it turns right, this way goes up, this way it goes down." Eh?
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." So then he took off the first time. He says, "Watch how I do it. Now I do this and that and the other thing." We made a circuit and landed again. Now he says, "Do you think you could do that?" And I says, "I'll try." I don't know what he said. But anyway, I did okay. We did a circuit, and I landed okay. It wasn't great. I'm sure it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But anyway, it passed. And then we went up and we did some air work. And he was telling me how to fly straight. You aim down the center of the front of the airplane at a point there, and if you fly right to that,
Right.
you fly. But that's not true. That's not happens because the wind will blow you around, and you're still aiming at the thing, but
Right.
you're not where you're supposed to be. You're going to fly sideways. But anyway, so anyway, we're all done this flight, and after about 5 hours of dual, which was ridiculous,
Yeah.
I could do everything you were showing me. I knew it. Anyway, so after a while, he says, "Well, I'm going to turn you solo." He says, "You're supposed to have 7.5 hours before you solo," but he says, "You can do it for 5 hours." And so I said, "Okay." So I went out and I did it. And then the inspector came with me. And then I did one circuit and landed, and the inspector came out, and he got in with me, and I took him up and did okay. is a DOT inspector, guy that grants your license.
Right.
And the crux of the whole thing was I knew more about flying than that flying instructor. Oh, I know what he said to me. He said, boy, you got on fast. He says, I can't believe it. And I had more time flying, I think, than he did. But I never told him that. Oh, that's the story of that. And I went and got my commercial license, and then I went up north and paid for
How old
everything.
were you?
Probably about mission age. About 20, 19, something like that, yeah.
I'd like to ask all these southern Alberta farm boys, they can all drive by the time they're 10.
That's right, yeah. Well, I had to go.
Clarification, they could drive on their farms.
Yeah.
Grandpa went up to
Sterling
Calgary
Smith, it
to
took
get
him
his
4 times his driver's test.
aeronautical
Yeah.
engineer license, is that what you call
Yeah,
it?
that's what they called it.
And then he got that.
At Nate or St?
That Nate.
Nate.
You had to take 2 years of book work.
I thought it was Satan in
Saint. Oh, it's
Calgary.
Saint. I'm
Calgary.
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 Saint. Yeah.
It was his starving days.
One time I'm driving along with the same guy I'm talking about, and we're in a Pontiac station wagon, and we're going up north, and it's in the winter time, and the roads are icy and slippery. So he's driving, he's going fairly fast, and I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, we seen this light flashing ahead of us like this, but it wasn't flashing. It wasn't flashing. It wasn't turning. It was just a light, and then it was black, and the light was black. What the heck is that? You get closer and closer. It's a train going across the tracks. There's a car on the other side, and that's the lights coming between the cars. And he sees that right away, but he couldn't stop because it was way too slippery. So he turned to the right and went down into the ditch. We never even hit the train.
There's talking
Good thing
before.
or you wouldn't be here.
Well, it could have
That's
been. I
right.
don't know.
Oh,
You should tell him about when you're in the apartment there in Montreal when the police raided it tonight.
Okay, you said it, you gotta say it.
Your mom was there too.
I don't remember it.
Okay, I will tell you.
Yeah, she was
I
little.
gotta know.
She was little.
Remember this picture?
Aww. Look at that cute little thing.
See, look, Rowan's got the thighs. See,
Look
you
at there.
got
Look
the
at the
thighs
thighs.
too. It's just.
Those are Mama's thighs.
Oh,
And yet when Tracy was born, there was no talk about my thighs anymore.
This was when we lived in Montreal.
No,
Is that
that's-
Montreal?
No, that's Carter.
No, it's no, it's
I was older when we got to Carberry.
no, it's in Montreal. It's in Montreal.
Was it?
We lived back here, Dollar de Zomo, or
Yeah.
when we were out there.
Check out those thighs, Rowan.
You're like, I can't.
When we went
What's
to
that?
Montreal,
You only have one roll.
Oh, I thought my
when
mom
Grandpa was going to go start flying for Air Canada, we went to Montreal. He had to go there supposedly for 6 weeks to train, and so we all went. We loaded everything we had, Terry, and everything into our little Valiant car, and we had one.
That's all we had.
We had our tickle trunk, that blue trunk.
Oh,
that we
yeah?
had. Besides, and we didn't take that. We left that someplace. I can't remember where.
But that's all we owned.
That's
was
all
that
we
car,
owned. We got
small
rid of
car,
everything else.
and everything we put into it.
And we rented this. We got to Montreal and we rented this little cabin because we were going to only be there for the fall.
Right.
And then Air Canada went on strike, and we were there for. Well, we were there till after Dwayne was
6
born.
months, wasn't it?
I think it was about 6 months. Yeah. We left right after Dwayne was born.
And they quit my training then, because the
Right.
mechanics had gone on strike and shut her down. They
Oh,
quit flying.
I didn't know that.
But tell them the best part.
So, oh yeah, so we lived in this little cabin, but then when it got to be winter and we were still there, we had to get an apartment.
I see Rowan.
And we didn't have any furniture or anything, so we had to rent a trailer apartment. It was an okay
Yeah,
apartment.
yeah.
And lived in there, and we used to have to go down, have to go down and do the laundry. This is why I don't like apartments that you have to go out of. That's why I was so excited that Kenny and Hunter have a washer and dryer in your apartment. Because I used to go down to this
Basement.
laundry in the
It was
basement.
basement.
And then one night we were sitting there, and all of a sudden there's all
You're
these
sitting down there, we're up in our apartment.
yeah, we're up in an apartment.
Okay.
There's all these police cars going. lights going all over the place, and they're